Hey everyone, I'm Courtney Picou. Welcome to Reconnection Blueprint, where we teach practical tools and strategies to let go of limitations and mindsets, really hear God's voice for our lives, and embrace empowered living, not only for ourselves, but for our families, cities, and nations. And today, I'm so privileged and honored and excited that we've got Dr. Sharnael Wolverton. Is Sion? Is it Sion?
Sion, yes.
Oh, all the way down here from Louisiana, y'all. So Dr. Sharnael, the reason why I picked her was because of, number one, I know her very well and I'm very familiar with what she does and her experience and her wisdom, but she is just so in tune with the mind, body, spirit connection with a little bit of the biblical scripture basis as well as quantum physics. And I love how this is really just kind of transitioned into an organic, almost like a Bible science of bringing everything back together. So that was part of the reason why I asked her to be a part of this show. And I am actually honored and privileged, as are you, where we actually get two beautiful interviews with her. So I will just go ahead and go through. You're actually a naturopath doctor, and you're also a minister who teaches divine health and human body. So I really do appreciate that. And you're also very involved in the Young Living industry and the business of Young Living and what it is that they do and the way that they minister. I've been around it pretty much my entire life due to my mom, and I never really understood some of the stuff about it. And it's just been really cool through this process of interviewing to really understand the purity of the company and what they produce and how it's so in line with what we really get to share with the world today. So, and then also say that you've authored 5 books. And so that can really take us down so many avenues, but the main one I think we're really going to talk about today is the science of miracles. And I love the way that you word it, remembering the frequency of love for the tagline. And I was hoping, number one, if I left any gaps in your bio, please, by all means, fill it in for me. And also, I was hoping you could just kind of tell the audience or share like how you got into this field and how this book came about.
Yes, awesome. Well, first of all, I am so excited to be here with you, Courtney. Actually, I have been in Louisiana long enough to kind of be from Louisiana, but I'm from Montana originally. And my dad was military, so we didn't really stay in Montana too long. We lived all over, most of the north of the United States, and then I lived overseas for a bit, a couple times, and then went back to college over there too. So for those other viewers out there, like I've probably been where you've been, and what I enjoy about doing what I'm doing now is I get to travel a lot and teach in these places still. I love to travel and also do a lot of stuff online. But going back to your, first of all, thank you again for letting me be here. And I'm just so honored because this is very much a passion of mine. I've always just thought that the body and consciousness and epigenetics and neuroscience and the supernatural, all of this is just very much my bag. And, I think a lot of the most typical humans kind of focus more on a Western version of like physical, matter to matter. I've, coming from a spiritual side and the ministry side, I've always been so intrigued with the supernatural. And I've always wondered, like, how is that connection with quantum physics? Because quantum, by definition, physics is physics, meaning matter to matter. But the quantum physics is the unseen. And, there's different things that have happened in my life over, since birth that have been undeniably supernatural. And, whether it's encounters or just hearing things or seeing things. And, I've met many, many people who have been able to tap into that and kind of see differently, and to tap into like the biofield and see what some people call auras or whatever. And coming in, my jump from, I guess, ministry to more of the naturopathic side, I don't know if it was too much of a jump, because really most of my ministry background, I was already teaching on the supernatural. I just didn't have the physical, the physiology and the necessary credentials to kind of speak into some of those arenas or organizations. And I found myself after traveling to, I don't remember how many countries it had been, but it was around 2007, 8. I had really, you know, after years of traveling to many, many countries, now I've been to 44, but up to then I don't remember. And I had just found myself very, very ill from a lot of different things. And mostly it was just my diet. I was on the American diet at that time, and there weren't a whole lot of choices at airports, and being on the road, and, you know, it was like gas station food, Doritos, you know, lots of soda, Rice Krispie bars was pretty much like my main food group, that and Coca-Cola, like, you know, so, and at the time I didn't have a whole lot of, even though my undergraduate was wellness and fitness, and I worked in kinesiology and, psych units for, you know, dietitian and people with eating disorders. I worked in cardiac rehab. Like, I knew better, but yet I don't know if I just thought that I was above all that, or that it would work itself out or something. But there are actual consequences to a lifestyle that, you know, pretty much don't give a crap about your body. And this is the temple, right? You know, so it caught up to me. Yeah. It catches up eventually. You can't continue to be less than love on a regular with your choices and not have any physical side effects. And so I went to many, many Western doctors looking for answers, and most of their answers had to do with pharmakia, which by definition is witchcraft, but I won't go there. So I finally had connected with somebody who is actually a medical doctor, but also a naturopathic doctor, and kind of went on that route of like, let's see what we can do to use like real life, you know, natural things to get rebalanced and to remember, like you had mentioned earlier. I love that word, because member as in not just one body and being in union with God in this temple as the house and the host of God, but also being in that the bigger, broader membership of that all of us are in God's image, and we're on the planet, and maybe not everyone's completely awake to how our service and our purpose works with God, but yet we're still connected and we're still in God's image. So there's that whole in union with this, and then also in union with that. And then we can go into the consciousness of us, you know, having our own biofield connection versus the earth biofield with the human resonance. And, you know, there's just this broad, real connection that we're way more connected than I think I even knew years ago. But I started back on that path using, you know, diet changes, you know, gave up soda, gave up Rice Krispies, you know, got off sugar, you know, started using things like essential oils and herbs and Bach flowers and frequency, a lot of frequency, you know, rice and biofeedback, and getting, you know, just self-care overall, like, you know, massages and exercise and infrared sauna, and, you know, believe it or not, crystals are, you know, people still might think that that's woo-woo, like that's out there and stuff, but crystals actually carry a frequency. Our bodies are frequency. You know, a healthy, normal adult body is 67 megahertz, and there's different things that we can do to keep that maintenance of the 67, but also it's optimal to go even higher, higher, higher. God is the highest, or love, who is God, is the highest frequency at all. And when we can keep above that frequency, then we're good to go, no matter what kind of stuff's going on in the world. There, you know, we can keep that high vibe, good vibes up. And once we start dropping, that's when dis-ease can come in. And when that comes in, you know, you got to work on getting back up there. So when I started this process of just, you know, using the natural thing, and, you know, it was about 16 weeks, and I literally dropped 80 pounds, which is pretty crazy, because honestly, what I found out is when we hold on to trauma and different things too, that actually keeps your body holding on to stuff. And I didn't even realize I had trauma, but, you know, using some of these modalities was causing trauma to come up. And, you know, as you're clearing, as you're cleansing, things kind of pop up. And, you know, then you got a choice to either look at those things and face it and work through it and transmute it, or you can suppress it and push it down and deny it, which isn't a good idea, because then it just goes back into the body and usually sits in an organ of some kind, waiting for you to acknowledge it. And, you know, it can go dormant for weeks or years or a decade. And, you know, we're not necessarily taught to see a signal like that as an opportunity to look at it and go, hey, how can we squish this? How can we transmute it? But if we can transmute it, then it opens up more opportunity for, and more space for expansion of God inside of us to do more and to hear more and to get more clarity and to just be a better version of ourselves on the planet. So,
I'm sorry. Can you just kind of like explain in like what you would mean by transmute for the audience?
To shift it in, so everything is information and code. And so when we have trauma, there's basically an encapsulated area of space that holds that trauma, whether it's in a certain organ. There's certain organs that hold different things more so than others, like your liver, usually anger, bitterness, resentment, that kind of stuff. Fear sits in the kidneys. Not being able to digest would have to do with digestion. You know, there's all these different, you know, things. And to transmute something, I mean, I'm sure you've had this situation, unfortunately, most of us have, Courtney, where you may have had like a family member or somebody that you have to be around on a regular basis who like betrayed you or hurt you or did something. And then the normal response in an adult healthy way would be to go to that person. You know, Matthew 8:18 talks about, you know, go to your brother and talk to him. And so you go to that person and let's say you sit down and you try to talk to them and go, hey, you know, when you did that, that really, you know, I felt really upset and, you know, I'm hurt about the situation. You try to resolve the situation. Well, if you have another person on the other side who cares about you and is mature, you're going to resolve it. But if you have someone on the other side who's like, you're crazy, that's on you, and I didn't do anything, and like denies what they did and you know, maybe says like you're oversensitive, or, you know, tries to play it down like they didn't really do anything, they deny that opportunity. And, you know, at that point, we have the choice to forgive and to love and try to work out our own stuff. Or we many times will go, okay, you know what? And we suppress, we depress, we push down, and we deny it also because they did, or we just try to process. You know, that's a difficult thing to process, especially if you have to be around that person a lot, you know, family functions, maybe it's a coworker where you're around that person, you know, a lot, and it takes a lot of energy to quote pretend like it didn't happen. And so, and that's how our feelings are. That's exactly how our feelings are. So and when we have a trauma of any kind and we're just like, I'm too busy to deal with you, or that's your problem, then we basically set ourselves up to have problems around, you know, around the corner, because there's no expression, there's no opportunity to squish it and resolve it. Because I tell you what, if you ever have like a physical thing with someone, and what if that person was just like, you know what, you're right, oh my gosh, that wasn't my intention at all, maybe it was a mistake or something, and they're just like, that was not my intention, I'm so sorry, I love you so much, like how can I fix it? Then your body would immediately relax, your shoulders would go down, and your chemistry changes, your biofield changes. And that's what happens when we acknowledge us inside. When you when you feel something, feel the freaking hell out of it. Like you know, if something comes up, if a signal shows, instead of going to a doctor necessarily to, you know, work on the symptom, you know, which many of us are trained to do, is you go to this Western doctor and the Western's like, oh, your knee is inflamed. Okay, well, here's some medicine to stop inflammation, but it's not going to stop inflammation. It's not going to stop the root of why the knee is inflamed. Right. You know, if you go to someone, if you go to someone like me, or someone who's more open to actual full mind consciousness and spirit, naturopathic energy, whatever, then we'd go, okay, well, the knee represents flexibility, and is it right leg or left leg, and this side could be jaw or whatever, and then you get to the root of it, and then you transmute it, then guess what? The symptoms are gone. And so when I went to my, when I started really looking at this and understanding it, I had muscle tested and used some other machines, and I had 29 traumas lodged in my body. And I didn't know how many were dormant, how many were active. And I started just working through with essential oils, which go past the olfactory system, right in that limbic system, and start dispersing things. But also, like all the other things I mentioned, raindrop, infrared, self-care, exercise, drinking water, change my nutrition, all the things to raise the frequency, which helps kind of dump that stuff out too. And then, like I said, 80 pounds later in 16 weeks, and off of all 30 medications that I had been on, which not a good, yeah. And and when I went back to test, Courtney, I only had 4.5 traumas left in my body in 16 weeks. So I'm a data, sciencey geek. I like to see things in the science, and I want to know, so I knew that, and then the thing is too, when you get on pharmacia, I don't know if these doctors knew what the left hand was doing from the right hand, and no judgment, because they're trained to just, help you feel better in their way that they know. I'm not an anti-Western. I'm not gonna, get a crystal if someone runs over my foot or something, I mean, maybe, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get a surgeon if I need a surgeon. I'm going to be responsible on those things. But to find someone who's trained, who can help, let's look at the root, because just like a car, if the oil is out and you need more oil, and you bring it to a doctor or auto mechanic who's like, oh yeah, is that flash light sound bothering you? God, I have the perfect solution. Let's just undo the light. We'll just make that sound go right away. You won't hear it. You can just drive away, and eventually, guess what? Your car is going to have some problems. So,
right.
A lot of the medications, which are synthetic, don't really work with their body. And if they do for a little while, they may not afterwards, because your body kind of hacks the system, because we're so smart, and it's like, that's not going to work anymore. So you have to constantly change. But then the side effects are crazy. So you can be on one medicine, and then they're like, oh, now you need this one because of those side effects, and you need this one because of those side effects. And you have this constant, then you're on 30 medications and have a suitcase to get through the airport, and a mental gymnastics map of, I got to take this one with water, and that one with milk, and these ones with food, and this one in the morning. And, you can go through that whole drama of stuff. And I find a lot of people who come to my practice, they're on a bunch of meds, and I'm like, okay, now tell me what you're on. And they'll tell me, and I'm like, okay, and what are you on for this one? And they're like, I don't know. Like, people straight up don't even remember why they're on what they are. And they're taking this mixture of all these things,
Right. And I think that speaks to the left hand and the right hand. Sometimes, like, there's been cases where a doctor has prescribed something, and then you go see a specialist for something completely different. Well, you don't tell them that you're on this, and then they put you on something else, which totally messes with it. And oftentimes can cancel each other out. So let me ask you this, like, what is and then I really want us to kind of get into a little bit of your book before we wrap. Like, what's a personal habit or practice that you utilize so that you are like conscientious and aware of everything going on all three planes? I mean, whether, like, we can't really compartmentalize like our lives, especially right now. I mean, we have such a disruption in our mediocrity and autopilot of life. And, like, it took even me a little bit yesterday to recognize that I was having an emotional breakdown due to the craziness of this past weekend. Like, I'm one of those, okay, let's just get stuff done, get it done. Okay, oh wait, my best friend's little girl has the flu. She got tested for the flu, and it's in the midst of everybody's running around scared with the coronavirus, and it's her birthday. So, okay, well, how can I help? Because it's not my emotional conflict. I wasn't worried about catching the flu, but I wanted to keep her safe. I wanted to sanitize the house, but then also not make her feel rejected, like something's wrong with you, and I didn't realize that I was just like going. And then yesterday, like it hit me. I was completely exhausted. And then I started like kind of doing the work for myself. Well, I didn't do it for myself. I had a coach that was asking questions. So let me just be real. And the more I started digging, I was like, I'm a little overwhelmed because I thought that I didn't need support. I could do it all by myself. So the more that we are in tune with ourselves, like what is something that you like utilize for your own success, like mind, body, and spirit, that we could share?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Courtney. I think one of the biggest things that we can do is just be aware of being aware, you know, being aware of what you're thinking, what you're talking about, what you're saying. You know, you could tell a lot about where someone's at just by what they're saying out loud. And I know I went through a season when, like, and my book talks about this, The Science of Miracles. There's a lot of different hands-on steps that go through, like how to change the DNA, how to change the timeline. Like if you've had like negative patterns that have continued in the cycle round, and you're just like, what? I thought I dealt with this. You know, sometimes it has to do with the DNA genetics. We all have a signature DNA that sets us apart from everything, and there's an electric signature to that, and that signature goes out into our biofield. Our biofield is 5 to 8 inches depending on the person. It's just that field that's all around us. It's full of code, it's full of information based on what we are. We only get what we are, and it's called bio because it's a bioelectric magnetic field, and that bioelectric magnetic field means that it's magnetic, meaning it magnetizes things to us in that code, and it also is electric. So, you know, if we're not paying attention with the alignment of what's going on with what we're thinking, what we're talking about, what we're feeling, this is the biggest magnetizer of all, is your emotions and your heart. And when I worked in cardiac rehab, the surgeons, I didn't participate in surgery, but I was an observer of several surgeries, heart surgeries, and the surgeons would talk about the blue current that they could actually see with their eyes inside the heart. And it's interesting that, you know, that was years and years and years ago. And then fast forward, I'm having all these dreams about formulas and ways to shift from one reality to the real reality, because all reality is based on perception. So whatever you see, you are. Whatever you see is true to you. And so if we can change what we're feeling, and just be more aware of what we're feeling, then that's going to change what's going out into the biofield as far as radiating out, but it's also going to magnetize something different back in. And like, again, I said, it has to do a lot with that signature code, you know, your personal code. So it may not even be your fear or your trauma from here being in the now of what's happening on the earth. But let's say great-great-grandpa who was in depression, or all the stuff from the war, or, you know, that could trigger some things. So you got now your real life scenario triggered with things from the past on an electric signature level. And then you're stuck in this trauma loop because you're putting that out, but then you're also magnetizing back in. And what that means is you start creating and attracting more people and or situations that will put you right back in that thing. And you stay in the loop, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I thought I dealt with this. I thought I dealt with that, you know, and you can go through therapy and do all the things, but until you change the signature code, you're not going to change the pattern of what's happening, because again, you only get what you are. So in my book, I actually talk about very simple. I woke up to like 3 dreams, and I felt like a weird mathematician, Mad Hatter kind of person. I'm like writing down formulas and all of this stuff, and I got it precisely to a very easy, like, oh, A plus B, you know, and then we go back, and it's based on quantum physics, but also it's this most simplified quantum physics ever. And I had not ever taken quantum physics like high level classes or anything. I mean, I took a basic high school quantum physics class. So, you know, for me, this was literally God downloading this to me. A matter of fact, all of this book was just ginormous downloads. I had publisher who had talked to me about like setting it up or whatever, and then I had this deadline, and then the deadline moved like way forward, and they're like, you know, can you have it in 3 months instead of, you know, by the year? And at that minute, I had not even a sentence of the book. I just had, you know, not even a title. And when they came back and they were like, okay, actually it's going to be 3 months if you want it for this thing. And then I was like, okay, yeah, so you're saying 3 months, but I had a traveling schedule that was going to have me gone 9 weeks of that, or 14 weeks of that, 3 months. So I was like, okay, so really you need this in 6 days. Like, that's not going to happen. And I was kind of like, you know, whatever, like you were yesterday, probably hung up. And then as soon as I got off the phone, I was like, wait a minute, I am basically saying no when the whole book is about miracles. And so why would I say no to my own miracle in this own situation, and the ability to help everyone on a giant universe level to jump into miracles, so just normal everyday living miracles. So I called the lady back. I profusely apologized, and I was like, you know what? I have to apologize. You know, I have the formula, and I'm going to apply the formula. And I don't want to rule my own self out by not having an expanded enough reality or perception that I can actually do this in 6 days. So just give me tomorrow. I'm going to start in the morning and, you know, write a couple chapters, and I'll see if I could write 2 more. And by the 6 days, maybe I'll have 12 chapters and we can have a book. And the next morning I got up, and by 11 o'clock I had like I started at 8:30 after the kids got on there. By 11 I had like 5 or 6 chapters, and I was like, what? By 4 o'clock I had an appointment. I called those people and said, can we move it? We moved it. By 10, 11 o'clock that night, I had the whole book done. And I was like, okay, remember that thing where I said I couldn't? Yeah, guess what? You can do anything. We can do anything. When we're plugged into source, we can do anything. There is nothing that can limit you except for you.
Except you. I love it. I love it. I love how you just basically took it where you were limiting yourself, and then that's what I like to call a breakdown. Kind of what I had yesterday. And then you just shift, and you wrote a freaking book in like pretty much a day, right?
Hours. Yeah.
Okay, man. So, okay, 100% possible, 100% of the time. That's what my business coach always says. She's like, 100% possible, 100% of the time. Cora, remember, God said, impossible is really I am possible, and you apply it to yourself. I'm just like, okay, I love it. So I love what you basically you just gave a surefire example of your own life of how you can really just shift the mindset and step into empowered living, because you just changed the world with a book that you never would have created if you would have limited yourself. And now you busted out a book on miracles. And I don't know about you, but I think we're right smack dab in the middle of signs, wonders, and miracles about to be busting out. If they're not, they're already busting out, whether we're seeing them or not, because some of us are in secure place right now for what's going on. But just before we wrap it up, did you want to go ahead and share the promotional for this particular book?
Yeah. So I have not only my book on sale right now, The Science of Miracles, but I also have this crystal card deck, which again, I know some of you, is it too bright? It's a little bit bright, but that light is a little bright.
What we'll do is we'll put the links and everything in whenever we shoot it out. So everybody just pay attention, like what she's showing, I'm going to have down at the bottom for you. You can just click.
Okay. So it's an 80 card deck, and it goes into basically what essential oils and how they work for the body, each 80 different oils. Well, actually it's 4 oils per card. So you do the math. And then when I was looking, I love aromatherapy, and especially if it's the real kind. But then I started getting a little bit into crystals, and it went past all my background boxes of religion and Baptist, and I had to kind of like get over it because I started looking at the science, and I'm like, okay, so God created rocks too, and also it's all over the Bible. Like the priests used them on a regular. It was on their outfit, Anyway, I had to get over myself for a minute, but crystals actually have specific value and properties and minerals that help us just as much as essential oils or anything else, which, by the way, essential oils are mentioned 1,600 times in scripture. So, but I couldn't find any kind of reference guide to how they work together yet. And I started, when I was working with my clients, I was like, okay, let's try this and this. And we were seeing amazing results of the combination of that with other things, nutrition, juicing, fasting. Fasting is I'm a big faster. I've been off sugar since 2014. So
you want to talk about that on the next interview?
Sure, I could do that too.
Okay,
but
guys.
Yeah, but one thing I do want to say about these cards is, when you pick one, you can use them as like flashcards if you want. Or you can just feel or look at what you're visually drawn to, because 100% of whatever you're drawn to is actually what you actually require. Your body knows what you need. Your spirit knows. And what we've seen is I've actually tested people with holding the real live crystal, because these are all my personal crystals. So I would test them holding the real live crystal, and then we would test them without. And then I would give them the card, just the card, as if it was a holding space for that crystal. And they tested equal to holding the card and or the real crystal, which I was just like, what? But that's how quantum physics is. And, I'm telling you, to have these 80 crystals in your house is going to save you a bunch of money that you won't have to go buy a bunch of crystals for, number one.
That's awesome.
But also you can learn, because it teaches on the back, like what each one does, what the properties are and how it helps you on a mind, body, energy level, but then also have a decree per each card. So I found all the cards, let's say, that work with heart or circulation or protection or brain or remembering or sleep. And then I found all the crystals. So I found the oils and the crystals that do that. And then I provided a decree, which on a frequency level, each word that we speak actually has a frequency too. So we wanted the sound to be amplified by all three layering. And yeah, it was pretty cool. I love my cards and I love the book. I have so many testimonies of this book, from people getting married, engaged, from businesses taking off, from people losing weight, people, all of a sudden having checks show up at their house, people having the ability to do things with their health that they hadn't before, people having energy to clean their house. And I mean, I can't even tell you how many people who have like, oh, I read your book and like, I just took 23 bags of garbage out of my house, or I just took 15 bags to donate to Goodwill. Like, people are just like getting so clear, it's just bringing that alignment and clarity to help people to be their best them, like I want all of you to have a normal life of miracles. Miracles is our inheritance. It should be the normal. Supernatural should be just natural. And that's what this book teaches, is that this is normal. I got to do this. Like, people usually start out when they send me their testimonies. I always tell everyone when they get this stuff, I'm like, do me a favor, please report your miracles to me, because you will have them. And they do. But they always start out each email or text with, you're not going to believe this, but, and every time I'm like, yeah, I will believe it. I will absolutely believe it.
As you were just saying that, I was thinking of the scripture in Revelations. I think it's 21:9, or maybe it's 9:21, something like that. I'm going to kick the numbers, but the testimony of Jesus is prophecy, and like how much power is in our testimony. So I'm so glad that you really shared that. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap this interview up. Guys, stay tuned. We're Dr. Sharnael is actually going to come in and she's going to do a second interview for y'all, an encore. So thank y'all so much for joining us today on Reconnection Blueprints, and stay tuned for the next interview.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bless you guys, all of you.
Have a blessed day.